to perform an engineer ceremony and acknowledge the first Australian. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jaron Blow on stage. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Jaron Blow, and I too would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of this land, of the Kulin Nation, and also pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm going to perform some Yidiki today, and so I'll go in the centre of the stage there and I'll give you some of my music. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jaron Blow. Thanks a lot. Today we are celebrating the Vaisakhi to acknowledge the hard work done and the service provided by all volunteers of Sikh Volunteers Australia to the community during the bushfires, COVID-19, and New South Wales flood crisis. Today in this hall, we have members of Sikh community. We have members of Christian, Buddhist, Islamic, and Hindu communities. We have representatives of various organizations who are working for the well-being of community. We have members of our forces and essential services. We have our MPs here, and we have members of our LGAs here. Today, this hall represents a true Australian multicultural society. Thank you. And I thank you for being here, for taking out time from your busy schedules to attend this celebration with Sikh Volunteers Australia. A little bit about Sikh Volunteers Australia. Sikh Volunteers Australia is a non-for-profit organization operating from Casey. The aim of the organization is well-being and prosperity of everyone. The organization upholds the firm principle of human rights, viewing the human race as one, irrespective of gender, religion, status of nationality. The idea behind Sikh Volunteers Australia is to provide volunteer services to the Australian community in collaboration with non-profit organizations and local councils. Traditionally, Vaisakhi is a summer crop harvesting festival, and it's been started from the region Punjab, a state in the north east province of India. And it's been celebrated in the month of Vaisakh. And that's how the festival got its name Vaisakhi. In 1699, the 10th Guru of Sikhs, Shri Guru Gobind Singh Sahib Ji, formally declared the process of baptism in Sikhism on this day, which is known as Amrit Sanchar. And that's how the day becomes the famous as birth of Khalsa. Since we are celebrating Vaisakhi as a Volunteer Appreciation Day, it's my responsibility to explain how dedicated our volunteers are. Our volunteers are actually the soul of Sikh Volunteers Australia organization. And while I'm speaking, I'm mentioning some dates, and just for your understanding, I request you to keep an account of those dates. And you will realize that what a marvelous contribution these volunteers have made. On 30th December 2019, the organization went out towards East Gippsland to provide food relief for people affected with the bushfires. The original plan was to serve food for a day only, because we are based in Devon Meadows and we were traveling around a 3.5 hour worth of journey towards the East Gippsland without any base over there. It is not feasible for the organization to keep the service long for an extended period. So the original plan was just for the day. But when we reached there, team realized that there is a requirement of continued service in the region. The team which was there, they contact back the base and the volunteers and explain them the situation. And our volunteers accepted that request of support. Every day, they travel 3.5 hour worth of journey from Devon Meadows or from Cranbourne or from Melbourne to the Brainsdale, and they served there. Some of them actually stayed there for 16 continuous days. Our volunteers had booked her ticket to see her sick sister after a long period of time. She was supposed to go to India, but she voluntarily cancelled her sick sister after a long period of time. But she voluntarily chef cook during the service. I want to tell you this, that 95% of our volunteers are engaged in full-time jobs. That is their way to earn their daily butter and bread. And they have families. But they leave all excuses behind when there is a call for service. 18th March 2020, when the COVID-19 lockdown starts, again, Sikh Volunteers Australia, this is just like 2.5 months after. Sikh Volunteers Australia decided to start free food home delivery service for 2 weeks, because that was the plan at that time, that the lockdown will be over soon. Oh, wow. So, the request for the meals within the first few days of the service reached to 600 a day. And again, we realized that this is a much needed service. We go back to our volunteers, we approach them, we ask them, we need your support. And in the time when the fear of COVID-19 was prevailed everywhere, our volunteers addressed that call. Every day, in group of 30 to 35, our volunteers engaged in purchasing, cleaning, peeling, cutting, cooking of the food. 12 to 20 volunteers every day use their own vehicles to deliver this free food to the homes of the people who are in need, who had requested for the service. The service, which was actually planned only for 2 weeks, continued for 289 days, till 31st of December 2020. And during this period, 142,000 meals were delivered to the homes of the people in need. All community centers were closed, and SBA could not get any kitchen facility to cook their meals. Our volunteers again came to the aid of organization, and during the COVID period, they built an entire kitchen at Devon Meadows facility from scratches within 30 days. You will be surprised by the efforts of the volunteers during this period. One of our volunteer, Leon Kyo, he traveled 70 kilometers one side from Korumbura to come to the Devon Meadows to pick up the food and to deliver it to the homes of the people. Another volunteer, Ishwinder Singh, he travels almost the same distance from Bandura. Anupa Shah, Ritish Shah, Danish, and Harpreet Kaur, they came from Croydon, almost 3 to 4 days a week. Katin come from Hawthorne, and all this for the sake of humanity. Our volunteers travel from far to serve the people in need. This remain ongoing every day without any interruption. I like to share this story with all of you. I was standing in a very renowned school, just explaining the service to the students. And during the question answer round, one of them had asked me that during the lockdown period, how did you buy your groceries when there is shortness of the things everywhere? I explained that this is not done by me or just one person of the organization. It was a team effort of the volunteers. The things which are required in abundance, our volunteers used to go to the different markets to purchase those in the admitted quantity or the quantities which are permitted. And they bring back it to the site and then they cook it. It's an extensive planning to make that thing happen and to make that thing happen completely contactless. That was another challenge. Have to maintain the social distancing while preparing, have to maintain it, all the rules and laws which are being put in place to stop the spread of the virus during the serving as well. And this is all being done by the volunteers. Last month, there were floods in the New South Wales. Our volunteers drove down to affected towns and stayed there for 5 days away from the comfort of their homes. While serving in New South Wales, although I'm being asked that please do not share this information, but I can't stop me. While serving in New South Wales, 2 of our volunteers, Mr. Gurmukh Singh and Mr. Lakhvinder Singh, their kids got sick back at home in Victoria. They remained unaffected by their home situation and stayed on the service. So you can imagine that these volunteers have dedicated to the service like a military kind of service. They try to provide a military grade service to the community by thinking of nothing else but just of the cause. The Sikh Volunteers Australia, the Sikh community had always worked toward the direction of Advance Australia Fair. In line with the same aim, now is the time for a short presentation and documentary of Sikh Volunteers Australia organization showing its venture while serving through the bushfires, COVID-19, and recent floods in New South Wales. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, that's an engaging and lovely presentation. And thank you, Team Sikh Volunteers Australia, for putting up all these memories together. A big hand to all of you. Thank you. And as I explained, I was a bit nervous. While I was away on the backstage, my daughter just texted me, Dad, you're doing well. So I hope the similar kind of text from her principal as well. Maybe then I will be good. So without taking a further ado, I would like to call upon our first guest speaker of the day, Mr. Jaspreet Singh Ji Sarokta, to come on stage. And Mr. Jaspreet Singh Ji is going to share with us the significance of seva and volunteership in Sikhism. And after this, we will all be listening to a very beautiful Shabad. And I request stage management team to get ready for that and request the participants to be on time. Thank you. And now I welcome Jaspreet Singh Ji. Please welcome with me.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm very honored and humbled to be here among so many volunteers who have taken out time from their personal life and work to contribute to humanity, because that's what we are before we are in any country and before who we are in terms of the color of our skin or the status we may be in or the position or rank or file. Maybe we are prime minister, minister, whatever we are. Beyond all this outlook dressing, if we step out, we are all human beings. If I were to pinch everyone in the room, that's one thing in common. It's pain. And we all feel the same pain. But when we can heal another and take away the pain, and we can all then feel the love and peace and feel the healing. So today I have been honored to be offered this opportunity to share a bit about the Sikh faith perspective and also Vaisakhi. I'll try my best to do justice to the topic because it took 240 over years for the Sikh gurus to preach and bring the message of God, of humanity to this world. And to do it within 15 minutes, it's a huge challenge. So let's see how we go. So we begin with the greetings that we have, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, which basically means the Khalsa belongs to God and the victory also belongs to God. Today we are gathered here to celebrate Vaisakhi with the Volunteers Appreciation Day, which is all about caring and sharing, and the Sikh perspective of this aspect. Just bear with me, it's a bit of animated stuff. Yeah. Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of the Sikh faith, was born in 1469. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is regarded by the Sikhs and many others as the messenger of God, an enlightener, teacher, champion of human dignity, peace among faith, social reformer, a brilliant spiritual light for all humanity. Guruji gave us the message of Ek Oankar, which is the first word in the Sikh holy scriptures called Sri Guru Granth Sahib, which means there is only one universal creator who created all of us. The voice of Guru Nanak was a voice of compassion and a plea for peace and unity during a time of widespread communal hatred. Wherever he traveled, he spoke out against what appeared to him as an empty or harmful religious rituals, such as idol worship, caste system, and sacrifice of widows. There was a time, if the husband dies, the wife had to be burned alive with him. So Guruji, at that time, to speak against this injustice, it's very dangerous. They'll put you to death. But Guruji stood his ground and spoke out for humanity. Now, if we move forward in terms of the concept of Langar, the free community kitchen, for what Sikh volunteers and all the Sikh Gurdwaras and NGOs are doing across the world. Guru Nanak Dev Ji started the concept of Langar. It is a process where Sikhs share their honest earning to provide food for everyone. It was designed to uphold the principle of equality between all people regardless of race, religion, caste, color, creed, age, gender, or social status. A revolutionary concept in caste-ordered society of 16th century India, where Sikhism began. In addition to the ideals of equality, the tradition of Langar expresses the ethic of sharing, community, inclusiveness, and oneness of humankind. It's in our scriptures to see the light of God in all hearts. At the age of 12, this is where it all began. Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji's father. So Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji is the founder of the Sikh faith, and his father gave him at the age of 12 the equivalent of 20 rupees to go out and do some business and bring back some profit. What did Guruji did? On his way, he met a group of holy men sitting on the side, and they had not eaten for days. And Guruji found out and bought some groceries and himself volunteered, cooked, prepared the food and served them with his own hands. When Guru Nanak Dev Ji returned, as everybody would be, frustrated, where's the profit, where's the money? His father was frustrated. But Guru Nanak Dev Ji said he did what we call Sacha Sauda, means truthful dealing, by feeding hungry men, which he said was the most profitable deal to Guruji. Practicing Vandake Shakana, which is a concept we have, is called sharing with others. One of the fundamental messages of the three principles, and because of this, Sikhs all over the world are distributing free food to the needy. Currently, Gurdwara Sacha Sauda stands in Faridabad in Sheikhpura district of Pakistan, which is where Guru Nanak Dev Ji is believed to have fed those sadhus, holy men. So it is still an historical place. Now, the three principles of Sikh belief, Guru Nanak Dev Ji formalized the three basic guidelines for Sikhs. Firstly, Naam Japana, meditation on God's name. A Sikh is to engage in daily practice of meditation by reciting and chanting of God's name to control our 5 evils, to eliminate suffering and live a happy life. He propagated truth, unity of God. Unity of God means it doesn't matter what faith we belong to, God is still one. Equality, fraternity, and justice. The next principle was Kirtakarna, honest earning and lifestyle. To live honestly and earn by one's physical and mental effort while accepting God's gift and blessing. A Sikh should never engage in dishonest means of making money. Thus, when he works hard, he does not become a burden to society. That's why you can see the Sikh community, wherever they go, in any part of the world, they are a resilient community. Vandake Shakna is a third, sharing and caring. The Sikhs are asked to share their wealth within the community and outside by practicing charity, which is called Daan. Sikhi, our faith, instructs to share and consume together. A Sikh can volunteer at a Gurdwara, an old age home, anywhere, even in a church, in a mosque, wherever there's a requirement, we are to go and help. So basically, we are the SES of the world, if I may say so. Because I've seen SES everywhere, they are there. Where's disaster, they are there. I wish they would be invited more during happy occasions. So my heart goes out to you because we're also part of the VCCEM, and I've seen all the hard work being done on the ground, volunteers. So thank you. The importance of seva. Now, this is what Jaswinder before me has been stressing on the voluntarism, that which motivates us to want to do more and not get tired. There must be something that's driving the Sikhs. And that driver is the passion and compassion and what the Guru has instilled in us. So the importance of seva, which is called selfless service, is to demonstrate belief in equality and the importance of all people. By serving others, Sikh shows and develops humility, showing love and respect by helping others, love for Waheguru, that is God. It helps Sikhs to become more Gurmukh. Gurmukh means God-like, Guru-like minded, which help them to develop virtues of truth, truthful living, compassion, patience, contentment, and humility, self-control and love, wisdom and courage. It helps Sikhs to move away from the 5 vices, which is anger, pride, lust, greed, and attachment to material possessions. When seva trig had pair hor nehfal karni is by Pai Gurdas Ji, which means without service, cursed are the hands and feet, and useless are other deeds. If we can't serve our fellow human being, cursed are our feet and hands. One who performs selfless service without thought of reward shall attain his Lord and Master. This is in our scriptures, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So Guruji has stressed over and over again the concept of service, which is seva and voluntarism. You can see anywhere in the world you see a Sikh and you're in trouble and you see a turban Sikh standing, just approach him. It's a signpost for you to seek help. We don't need an office, we don't need a signboard, we are the signboard and we will offer help. And that is what the Guru has instilled in us. Moving on to the next slide. Sorry, I'll go backwards. Now, there are 3 types of seva. That is tan, man, and tan. Tan is physical aspect of seva. This involves physical work and tasks to show selfless service. For example, this could be cooking and serving the langar, providing food to the needy, cleaning the gurdwara, helping in gardening, whatsoever. You can see the Sikh volunteers doing what they are doing. It's called tan seva. And then there's man seva, mental aspect of seva. This involves Sikhs using their mental skills, talents, teaching people how to read and understand the scriptures, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, teaching people how to play musical instruments during the worship, or teaching people about the history of Sikhism, or giving even free tuition. You can use your talent and contribute. And the last one is tan, material aspect of seva. This involves Sikhs selflessly helping others by sharing their materialistic wealth. This could be by donating 1/10. We all required to donate 1/10 of our earning to a good cause, to the needy, to charities which we call daswant. It could also involve helping others in time of financial difficulty or giving money to the poor. Now, if we look at the concept of langar, after Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the second Guru, what he did was the strengthening of the community kitchen, institutionalized it, took special significance during his time as a Guru. Now, in Sikhism, there are 10 physical human gurus, but there is one soul of Guru Nanak that transmigrates into the next physical body, and which today, our final Guru, when he left, the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he then enshrined that from today onwards, the living Guru will be the scriptures, which is called the Shabda Guru, which is called the Word, and the Word is God. Guruji's wife, Mata Khiri, took personal charge of the management and running of the community kitchen at Khadur Sahib, Punjab. In addition, Guru himself at meals sat together without distinction with people of various castes and creed to have a meal in the community kitchen, thus promoting community harmony. So even Guru, who was leading this, when the common man came to eat, he would sit with them, no special treatment, and have a meal with them. Now we are going to move on to Vaisakhi. The significance of Vaisakhi. What is Vaisakhi? We have heard a lot about it. There are many ways to celebrate it, and we will share what Vaisakhi is today, which is the birth of Khalsa. It commemorates the year of 1699, April 13, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the 10th Sikh Guru, founded the order of the Khalsa, a legion of pure with saint soldier qualities to protect anyone from oppression and injustice. If we take ourselves back to 1699, the birthplace of the Khalsa, perhaps the real significance of Vaisakhi can be comprehended. During the period 1650, the country around Punjab was in turmoil. The rulers were corrupt. There was no rule of law. The rights of common people were tramped on. Justice did not prevail. The strong imposed their will and their way without question. The weak suffered constantly and quietly. There was misery everywhere. The weakest were slaughtered daily. No one heard their screams. The rich were accountable to no one. And their wishes prevailed. Higher authority could easily be bought with money and wealth. For the average person, no peace could be granted. People lived like animals. Fear gripped many nations. The minority were ruled by imposing terror upon common people. Death was never far away from one's spot. Under these circumstances, that Guru Gobind Singh Ji rose to the occasion and chose to create the Khalsa, the pure saint soldier. Now, the concept of Khalsa, a lot of people have their wrong concept. A Khalsa is a saint first, then is a soldier. If you have a soldier first, then a saint, we are in trouble because there's nothing governing the soldier. You need to govern the thing. Just like a general, a military, or police officer is governed by the rules of democratic equality for all, that saintliness governs the soldier. Thus, the soldier cannot do anything wrong because he's governed by that saintliness in him. That has been inculcated by the Guru. So during this time, he created this saint soldier. The Guru wanted to create a spirit in people within the community who would take on the challenge and rise above the weakness of the common people, to be strong and fearless, to be prepared to face these challenges without reservation and without resorting to injustice, to be fair and even-handed at all times, to be prepared to die for the truth and to stand up for human rights. Guru Gobind Singh Ji called the 5 men who came forward to sacrifice their life for truth and justice the Panj Pyare, which basically means the 5 beloved. Guru Gobind Singh Ji called the 5 men who came forward to sacrifice their life for truth and justice the Panj Pyare, which means the 5 beloved. After they reappeared in the tent, there's a whole history behind this. Time is an essence, so I'm not able to go into the details of it. So I'm just scratching the surface and just sharing the points. The Panj Pyare were initiated, baptized. It's thought that once Guru had finished the initiation, he himself seek to be baptized by the 5. We'll explain a bit in a minute. Now, when we go into the Khalsa fold, means when we get baptized, we call it initiation. In the Christian world, they call it baptism. We are given the 5 articles of faith. They are the 5 Ks, the Ks and Dadi, our beard. We are not allowed to cut, shave, pluck any part of our body hair from head to toe, from birth to death, man, woman, all same. That's equality. And men and women all, when we get baptism, we drink from the same holy water. There's no distinction between status. Once you have taken the baptism, you cease your status and you become one with humanity. So Kachara, Kanga, Kada, Kirpan. I'll explain a bit into detail, and you can see the outlook of where it's normally worn under and the significance of these 5 articles I will share with you. And before that, once we have taken, a male will take the surname Singh and the female Kaur. And Singh basically meant lion, and women, the Kaur means princess. Now, why Guru Gobind Singh Ji did this? He wanted to take away and diminish the power of caste system to promote equality. If I were to move on to the next, we'll explain a bit about the 5 Ks, the 5 articles of faith. Case long hair, a symbol of spirituality. The case reminds a Khalsa to behave like the Gurus. It's a mark of dedication and group consciousness, showing a Khalsa acceptance of God's will. Long hair have long been a common element of many spiritual prophets of various religions. Kanga, a comb, a symbol of hygiene, discipline, as opposed to matted, unkept hair of ascetics. A Khalsa is expected to regularly wash, comb their hair as a matter of self-discipline. Now, the khara, the steel bracelet, is a symbol to remind the wearer to restrain in actions and remembrance of God at all times. Kacha, a religious short, a symbol signifying self-control and chastity. Thou shalt not commit adultery. This is where it is. So only after the religious ceremony can a man and woman be together as husband and wife. Kirpan, a ceremonial sword, a symbol of dignity and the Sikh struggle against injustice. It is worn purely as a religious symbol, not as a weapon. Kirpan is religiously symbolic of their spirituality and the constant struggle of good and morality over the forces of evil and injustice, both on individual as well as on social level. Now, if I were to summarize on some of the achievement of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he instituted the initiation baptism ceremony in 1699 for what the Sikh world is celebrating on April 13, and the whole month of April is a month of Vaisakhi that we celebrate. After he had initiated the 5 beloveds, we call them Khalsa, the Panj Pyare, he kneeled down on his knees and sought to be baptized, and that holy water we call Amrit. So with his hand folded, he bowed his head with a posture of extreme humility. Guruji set an example of equality and democratic fraternity, not to be found anywhere else in the annals of the world history. Such an act of democratic equality and great humility where a leader, the Guru, purposefully turned around and transformed himself into a seeker, thus creating the concept of Gur Chela. This has never been performed before, nor will it ever be. So if you see here, Guruji gave a kind of democratic power to the Khalsa Panth. They were the international consciousness of humanity. That means he is a leader, he's at the same time also a disciple. So the concept of Ape Gur Chela. His father, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, the 9th Guru, gave his life for another faith. We will never find this in history where a prophet of a faith would give his life for another faith. Why? At that time was the Hindu faith, but he was rightfully stood up for humanity and he gave his life for the freedom of religion and humanity. Guru Gobind Singh Ji created the Sikh nation called the Khalsa, which is a legion of pure same soldier qualities to protect anyone from oppression and injustice. And finally, he declared Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji as our eternal living Guru and ultimate spiritual authority of the Sikhs, which is in the center stage of all Sikh Gurdwaras. Now, this is Pai Kanhaiya. Pai Kanhaiya was the first humanitarian who, even during the war against the Mughals, was giving water to the enemy. He was questioned, but he said, my Guru taught me to see God in all. There was no discrimination. He was always defending. After I defended somebody attacked me, he fought, I still helped him. That is the concept of help. Now, finally, the Sikh community of Victoria, I just want to share because I have been part of this journey with the Sikh volunteers for many years, and I've seen them working on the ground day and night, and I've seen how they have been juggling their families and their work. As you heard earlier, Jaswinder mentioned, 95% of them hold full-time jobs, and they have to leave their jobs to do this volunteerism. So during the 289 days of COVID period, 142,600 freshly cooked vegetarian meals were delivered to homes of vulnerable members of society in 41 suburbs of 6 councils by the Sikh Volunteers Australia. They operate with a force of 295 volunteers that have directly participated in this noble service. Now, not to forget the Sikh Gurdwaras across Victoria, Sikh organizations, Sikh NGOs were also actively involved in providing free food, groceries, care packages, and other essentials during COVID period. Together, the Sikh community in Victoria provided hundreds of thousands of meals during the pandemic. We would also like to honor all of you here and acknowledge all the NGOs and various services that are here and from various faiths and traditions for doing their part in serving humanity, serving Victoria, serving Australia. Can we all put our hands together and give all of you a round of applause? Thank you very much. I will just move on to the last line, humility in serving. Now, in the Sikh faith, in helping or serving the needy, we Sikhs are humble to be given this opportunity to serve. Now, it's very common to see someone giving somebody something, looking top down. But in our faith, when I'm giving to someone, I need to go down in my mind to thank and respect the person who is receiving what we are sharing. Because what I'm sharing is not mine, it's given by the divine. So for us, the person who is higher is the person who is receiving it because that person is blessing us to be able to serve him to get the blessing. That is the concept of giving, not giving and putting ourselves on a pedestal. So that is a concept. And in 6 scriptures, there's Janaki Seva, Uttam Kama, the highest service is a service to humanity. So with this, I hope I have done some justice to the Sikh faith, and I just want to share the concept of Chardi Kala. And before I do that, you can read it. Something just came to my mind last night when I was trying to put this presentation together. There's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Looking at today's event, I would say it takes humanity in communities with a goal of selfless service that helps a nation go through crisis and pandemic to come out together, resilient, and more united in the end. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Well, that's a lovely presentation, Jaspreet Singh Ji. Now I would request Sikh Volunteers Australia representative Bhai Harpreet Singh Ji to please come on stage and present a memento to Bhai Jaspreet Singh Ji for all the service he is doing. Thank you. Bhai Jaspreet Singh Ji, please come back on the stage. Bhai Harpreet Singh Ji, please come on the stage. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. And while I was in the backstage, my daughter again texted me. So this time the text says, Dad, you are running late on your schedule. Pick up, you are losing points. So I don't know about her principal, but I'm losing. So we will try to juggle up again and we ensure that we come back on track. And my own idea is that when we are organizing such a blissful event, sometimes things move. So thanks a lot. Now, before we move next to our next performance. There is a piece of information I want to share with all of you, and that is that the Sikh religious scripture, Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it is all written in the verses in ragas. They can actually be sang. And today, all these youth volunteer group of Sikh Volunteers Australia, they are going to sing one of the verses which says, विसर गई सब तात पराई जब ते साध संगत मोह पाई, means I have forgotten all the evenness of myself since from the day I have joined the holy congregation. So please welcome this youth group of Sikh Volunteers Australia and bless them so that they can perform well. Thank you. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Well, in Sikh way of life, when we have to appreciate something holy, we do it with a jaikara, and that is one person says "Bole So Nihal," and the rest of the people reply it with Sat Sri Akal. So, in honor of these kids who have performed this beautiful holy verses for us, I'll request you to join with me for a Jakara. Bole So Nihal. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Moving along with now our performances and our program, now I would like to request our second guest speaker of the day, Mr. Tim Costello, Reverend Mr. Tim Costello, AO, member of Australian Order, to please come on the stage and join us and say a few words. Well, for Mr. Costello, he's already smiling. Most of the Australian audience know him as a Baptist minister, a mayor, a lawyer, a leader, a social justice campaigner, and a CEO. Well, Mr. Singh, you're quite a lot of man. Please come and join us on the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for that welcome, and it has already been an extraordinary learning occasion for me. I must admit, I did not know a lot about Sikhism, though I have been in India, not in the Punjab, but in other parts of India, and seen Sikhs feeding and housing people in Delhi. I saw the Sikh temple where some 50,000 people a day were being fed. The most enormous containers of food and lentils being prepared. And I was overwhelmed at the generosity, compassion and empathy. Anyone who is homeless or hungry in Delhi is able to go to that temple, knowing without any questions asked about their religion, their caste, where they belong in the embedded hierarchy, they will be fed. But beyond that, I didn't quite understand the depths of the faith as it was explained by the last speaker. And I must admit, I was sitting there thinking, what is it that makes some people extraordinarily good volunteers, community-minded people offering their service, and others who may be good people, but it never troubles their conscience to actually volunteer or to do anything? Is it just that some people are wired with a greater degree of empathy, that they can imagine themselves in the shoes of someone who's hungry or homeless or suffering bushfires? And others go, well, I'm glad someone's out there doing that, but I'm putting my feet up, I'm watching my footy team play, not my responsibility. It is interesting, isn't it, just to think about that question of wiring. We in our society want to place a higher value on those who volunteer. They do it not because there's any money to be made. We're all very familiar with the profit motive. Nothing wrong with making money. All of us know how fundamentally important that is in economics. But in our minds, if someone is doing something of public service, of good for the community, and being paid for it, it's not quite as high in the moral hierarchy as a volunteer, is it? As someone who says, I don't need to actually do this for money. I'm doing it because I'm motivated by something else. There's nothing wrong with for-profit businesses. There's lots of wonderful not-for-profit businesses, charities, and I've led a few in my time. But even with not-for-profit staff, they're often being paid. They still do wonderful work, but they're not-for-profit and charity, but they're being paid. When we have politicians and councillors who might do wonderful service for the public in their role as a politician, we still have that at the back of our mind, yeah, but they want some votes. And there's another motivation going on for their public service. And if there aren't votes in it, they may just not do the right thing as a politician because they need the votes. So our minds are taught to always rank motives and priorities. Are they paid? Is it for profit? Is it for votes? What is quite remarkable, and I heard it expressed by the last speaker, is this idea that if you're a Sikh, it is fundamental to who you are, whether you're paid for it, whether there's any votes, whether there's a medal. It is fundamental that you will be compassionate. I loved the speaker who said, maybe it was our MC, we are the world's global SES. Wherever you see a person with a turban, just go up and say, I need help, and they'll help you. That really struck me. I thought, okay, what is the motivation here? Well, we've heard it. The motivation is profoundly rooted in the Sikhs' understanding of God and faith. God, not just one God and creator, but God who is full equality, full fraternity, full justice. You might have heard that. And we who in serving that God will show equality and fraternity and justice to others. And we'll do it humbly. I love that idea. We're not up here speaking down to you, and you better be grateful, but we are alongside you. Actually, if anything, I heard Sikhs see themselves as a bit lower than the person they're helping, out of humility, actually saying, and I see God in you, the light of God in you. Well, I've really enjoyed thinking about that idea of motivation. At its best, that's what Christian faith teaches too, that everyone carries the image of God. One of the most famous teachings of Jesus, the last one before he was arrested and crucified, was a teaching where he said, the nations are gathered together, God's on the throne, it's the final judgment day. Pretty scary moment. And people are being divided into heaven and hell, sheep and goats. This is harsh, this is judgment. What's the basis of judgment? The basis is, I was hungry and you fed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was in prison and you came and visited me. And on Judgment Day, there's a lot of surprised people. They're going, but Lord, if we knew it was you in prison, of course we would have visited you. If we knew it was you that was hungry, of course we would have fed you. If we knew. And Jesus says, yep, that person in prison, that was me. That person who was hungry, that was me. Oh, and that naked, shivering, freezing person, not clothed, yep, that also was me. This is the basis of judgment. As I listened to Sikhism, I started to pick up something of my own understanding of faith, my faith. What I liked in what we've heard is this notion of equality and fraternity. Let me finish by saying, if you're on the left side of politics, you always give a priority to equality, and you struggle for greater equality. If you're on the right side of politics, you always give an emphasis to liberty or freedom. If you're on the left, you go, well, more liberty and freedom means less equality. If you're on the right, you say, well, if there's too much equality, we'll lose liberty and freedom. And there's always a playing off of liberty versus equality. What I like about Sikhism, and I'd say it's true of Christian faith, is this. It sees that there'll always be a dance between equality and freedom, left and right. But that's not the great aim. The great aim is fraternity. Now, fraternity is just the word for an association. An association of people is a fraternity. I, for 15 years, was a lawyer. As a lawyer, I was a member of the legal fraternity. That gave me some discounts on legal insurance and other products. It gave me privileges to join certain clubs. That belonged to the legal fraternity. But I know the legal fraternity was very, very exclusive. I was in because I was a barrister and solicitor admitted at the bar. I was in. But if you weren't a barrister and solicitor, you couldn't be a member of the legal fraternity. If you're a medical person, you can belong to the medical fraternity. But if you're not a medico, it's exclusive. You can't be in. What I pick up in certainly Sikh faith, and I think it's true of Christian faith at its best, is it aims at an inclusive fraternity, not exclusive. When I was in prison and you visited me, Jesus said, people in prison have been excluded from the fraternity of those who are law-abiding people. They are beyond the pale. Here is Christian faith including them. Same with Sikhism. Sikhism that challenged caste. If you were born untouchable or a lower caste, still true, largely in India today, it's assumed that you must have done bad things, made wrong choices in a previous life. You've been reincarnated in a lower caste. And therefore the poverty you're suffering and the problems you've got, don't expect sympathy. You made choices in a previous life, so you're now fated to be in this caste. It's a leave class for those who don't want to show empathy and sympathy. Freedom in a past life, bad choices, fate in the caste, low caste this life. Along comes the founders of Sikhs, Guruji and others, and they challenge this and they say, there is no caste. We are all equal. And therefore, when we operate out of charity, it's not because we're going to get votes or money or popularity, it's because of our faith, who we are. We see God as creating all of us equal. Christian faith, at its best, does the same. Let me finish by saying it was from my maternal grandmother that I learnt most about charity. She would have us as kids over on the weekend, cooking all day Saturday. I'd rather be playing footy or playing cricket, but my grandmother would have me cooking. Not much fun when you're 10 or 12. We'd go to church on Sunday after our roast dinner at Sunday lunch. My grandmother would take all this excess food, put it into baskets, and with us, her grandchildren following her, she'd go out into her community, taking casseroles and cakes and things we'd cooked and leaving them at doorsteps of people she heard in her community were doing poorly. That was her word, they're doing poorly. We'd say depressed, maybe a widower. And I remember saying to Grandmum, why are we doing this? And the answer she gave was so simple. I remember she said, Tim, this is what a Christian does. No one asked her to do it. In fact, a lot of the casseroles we left were of people who she'd never met. She just heard that they were doing poorly. Well, my grandmother had a profound impact on me. She died at the age of 84, and I spoke at her funeral. And the one thing she said whilst in a coma before she died, she was in a coma for 3 days before she died, was don't forget to water them geraniums. Puzzling because though she had a lovely garden, she didn't have any geraniums in her garden. We thought something's gone dislodged in her brain. Why would she say that? It wasn't until after her funeral I discovered, well, it was my aunt, her daughter, a Henry Lawson story called Water Them Geraniums. Grandma might have read it to us, none of us could remember. But the stories of this dirt poor woman raising a tribe of kids in the Australian bush, no man around, the tragic missing father in Australian bush life. We don't know if he's deserted her, if he's died, or just gone droving. And this woman has to clothe and feed and educate these kids on her own. No social security, no help. She's dirt poor. The one thing she has that she's incredibly proud of is a garden with some beautiful geraniums. And in the Henry Lawson story, she's struck down, she's dying, it's terminal. And as the reader, you panic emotionally, thinking she would be saying, who is going to feed these kids, clothe these kids, educate these kids? There's no one else, only me. The last scene of the Henry Lawson story is the kids gathered around this battler's mother's bed. And her last dying words to her kids, she says, don't forget to water them geraniums. I realised my grandmother, even in a coma, was passing on her values. I'd learned them cooking all the food and following her and leaving casseroles. Her values, even in a coma, were, it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you make, how good you think you are. What is really the measure of who you are is how you care, how you volunteer. Not because you're going to get some medal for it, but because God sees. To all of you and to the Sikhs here in Australia, let's keep watering them geraniums.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Tim. I request you to please be on stage. Please don't leave. Sorry, I apologize. I request Sikh Volunteers Australia representatives to please come on stage and present a memento to Mr. Tim Costa. Please.
Thanks.
And that little texting on my phone, it's still going on. I'm being told that yes, we are catching. So maybe I can improve on my grades. Right along. Now it is time to request our third guest speaker of the day. Is Vivian Nguyen to please come on the stage and share her valuable thoughts with us. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind our respected faith leaders and school representatives that after the regard is being presented to women, they will be the next in line to receive the regards, so they might need to be ready. For women, I can only say that she has a strong track record in promoting multiculturalism and advocating for the needs of diverse community. Without taking any further time, I request her to please come on stage. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional honours of the land on which we are gathered here this afternoon and pay my respects to their elders past and present and any Aboriginal elders joining us here this afternoon. I've got a list of speakers here, guests that I would like to acknowledge. To Tim Costello, that wonderful speech that he delivered just now. I understand the Honourable Jason Wood will be joining us. Neil Angus, Shadow Minister for Multicultural Affairs in Victoria. The Honourable Anthony Byrne, I understand, will also be joining us. Pauline Richards, MP. Ms. Jordan Kunyali, which will be joining us. Australian Federal Police, whose skills, who I haven't met yet. And the Australian Race Discrimination Commissioner, Jim Tan. To all of my wonderful multi-faith advisory leaders, Mohammed Mohaddin from the Islamic Council of Victoria, to Murray Davis from the Baha'i community, to great friend Jasvir, and of course to all of the executive members of the Sikh Volunteers Australia. You are the reason why I'm standing here in front of you this afternoon. There are many reasons that I'm here today this afternoon as well. And we've heard from Tim, we've heard from Jasvir, we've heard from the leaders, the Sikh faith, and the reasons why you volunteer. I also want to add to that another reason why you volunteer. You volunteer not because you volunteer because you also give up your job to volunteer for others. That is way more than anyone could ask for. And because of you, we managed to pull through the bushfires. Many of us follow you to donate food, money, and everything else that came following your kind act. And because of the work that you've done, we managed to pull through communities here in Victoria. For that, I'm grateful. I'm standing here with you this afternoon. This is us all very proud. Thank you very much.
Vivian, please, I request to be on stage a little more. Thank you. So, Vivian Nguyen, Chairperson, Victorian Multicultural Commission. Now I request Sikh Volunteers Australia representatives to please come on stage and present a memento to women. Right after this regard ceremony, I request school representatives and faith leaders to please join us on stage. Respected faith leaders, please come on stage. I request Chi Kwang Sunem from Buddhist community, faith leader Buddhist community, Dr. Mohammed Mohideen from faith leader Islamic community, Swami Sunishtanan from Hindu community, and Moray Davis from Baha'i community to please come on stage together and receive the mementos, please. Please, sir. Please, sir. मैं स्कूल आना विनती कर सकता Reverend Gwen, I request you to please come on stage to present regards to the representatives of various schools, please. So we have here the school representatives of Brentwood Park Primary School, Clyde Grammar, Cranbourne West Primary School, Tulane Primary School, Barton Primary School, and Cirrus College, Keysborough. All representatives, please join us on the stage. Thank you.
You're getting a good score.
Thank you. Please, right.
It's lovely to see my school.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. And I'm just being told by school representative that I'm going to get very good grades. Actually, I'm happy. So all those past time which we have lost, doesn't matter now. All right, moving right along. There is a thing about Sikhs that doesn't matter wherever in the world we go, the very first thing about a Sikh which is being considered is his or her turban. That is the very first prime thing which comes into notice. Even in a group of 1,000, you can easily recognize that that person is a Sikh, without any doubt. It is called the star in Sikhism, and it is a very important part of Sikh culture. In English, the star is called turban, and it is an item associated with the headwear to cover long uncut hairs. Often, because of incomprehension, I will say, Sikhs are asked that what is on your head? I should say sometimes our kids are called with the names in the school. Oh, what's that weird thing on your head? Is there a tomato or potato inside or something? And that happens actually. And this is coming back to us as well. So today, we asked our volunteers to demonstrate our audience that how to tie a turban. So everyone can see that how it's actually being done. And this is being done by every Sikh every day in the morning. And without further taking any more time, I would like to call Paramjot Kaur, Gagandeep Singh, and Harjap Singh to please come on stage and demonstrate the skills and the way of doing this turban tying. Another thing, over a period of time, since I will say 550 years or 600 years, there were many styles of tying a turban, thousands of them. But our volunteers are going to demonstrate the most popular kind of three styles. One, which is called a pug. Another one, which is called a dumala. And the third one, which this little kid is actually demonstrating, it is called a patka. So I will ask stage management team to complete their performance and start it. Thank you. So you may understand now that why in our families kids get ready fast. Because their patka is tied by their parents. Well, there is another question which is often being asked regarding the dastars that, and mostly to the adults, that is the color have any significance? Yes, there is colors for special occasions. But mostly, we try to match the colors with our dress, just like any other article of dress. Either in contrast or matching, there is no foundation. Anyone can wear any color. One particular thing which I would like to mention here is that I was a bit emotional when these candidates are actually tying the curtain. And that's because an important article of our faith, we have to demonstrate that what it is. Because of this thing, there are some occasions when kids from the school have come to us and explained that there is a camping trip going from my school, especially grade 3 and above. But I can't join. Why? Why can't you join? Oh, there is no one there to tie my patka. Now imagine in the head of that kid what's going on. So I humbly request today that if school representatives or any of you feel it appropriate, then we are most humbly want to come to your institutions. We are happy to give information to the staff or the people involved that what this thing is, how it's been tied, so that no one wastes an important opportunity in their curriculum life. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I hope I'm getting good grades. And the next in line is actually a Punjabi children books project, which will be a project that will demonstrate the richness of the community. I would like to call Tala Hassan to come on stage. Please inform about this subject. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And look, she has dressed in the traditional dress as well.
Thank you so much, Jasminder G. And you could probably stay here because I've roped you into this project anyway. So, do I have a clicker? Okay, cool. Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Taylor, and I'm just here to announce a really exciting project that's going to be coming to community shortly. The Dadima Di Kahaniyan, or Grandmother's Stories book project, which will see the Punjabi community team up with Kids Own Publishing to produce a series of bilingual children's books. Kids Own Publishing are a community publishing house that celebrate children as authors and illustrators and give them a platform to share their voice and their stories. So for the project, groups of kids from the Punjabi community and their families will be invited to participate in a series of workshops led by a Kids Own Publishing artist, where they'll be able to work together to select or choose or create a story of their own choice, and then create illustrations to go along with that story. The team at Kids Own will then take all of the materials that are produced in these workshops, work some design magic, and publish a book, with each participant then becoming a published author and illustrator, and their names are actually printed in that book. The books will then be presented to participants and the wider community at a book launch celebration.
Thank you, Tyler. Thanks a lot for this lovely information.
So
I
I would like to interpret this once again that this series of 5 books is actually of the community, for the community, and by the community. So I will say this will be a marvelous project in coming days, and please stay tuned as Tyler has informed us. Going forward, I would request to our volunteers of Group B. I believe when you are all coming in the hall, you will be handed over a sheet, more than one sheet. And I request the volunteers of the Group B to please line up in an aisle on your right, so that the event management staff can check your names and other formalities. I request again, please line up in the aisle on your right, and please ensure that there will be a minimum disturbance as possible. Thank you. I request the team that please turn this one on.
I need it now.
I need it now.
Please bear with me. There's something going on my phone, but bear with me. It will last only a few minutes. Thank you. Thanks for being so patient and helping me in getting good grades. So I believe that by now you are all thinking that what this beautiful big shiny cup is for. It's big, shiny, isn't it? Well, I can tell certainly to you this is not for me. I don't know this thing. I didn't get that much.
All right. Then whom it is for? So let me uncover this suspense. In the beginning of the event, I tried to explain that how much the volunteers of Sikh Volunteers Australia mean for the organization. I'd say they are our hero. I told you that they are the soul of the organization. But who's the backbone? The backbone is our donors. The donors who provide us with each and everything required to provide the service for the needy people. And this trophy, I'm very honored on behalf of Sikh Volunteers Australia to present to each and every single donor who have contributed in this service. For us, thank you. For Sikh Volunteers Australia, for us, no donor is small or big. Every single penny which is being donated for the cause matters equal to us. This is your trophy. Thanks a lot. And I also want to mention that we will keep this trophy in the Langar Hall, the place where the food will be served. Anyone who wants to take the picture with this trophy, they are most welcome. After today's event, this trophy will be moved to 1734 Devon Meadows Sikh Volunteers Australia site. It will be kept over there. Whenever you wish, whenever you want, please come over there, stand with it, feel it. It's your pride, it's your recognition. Thank you. And as I was saying earlier, when we are organizing such a big, such a massive event, things happens. A lot of things happens. We got very last minute, we got a very beautiful very renowned volunteer, artist to us. He came to us and he says that I'm an artist, I do paintings, and I want to present something to Sikh Volunteers Australia. Well, this artist has painted this thing with the pencil sketch in 4 days. Let me welcome Raji Mustafa on the stage and request Sikh Volunteers Australia representatives as well to please come and receive this memento. Thank you. Well, I can only say that no words can explain or equalize the love and respect shown by this token for our organization. I most humbly just can accept it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, the next item as per our proceeding is to welcome Honorable Jason Wood MP, Assistant Minister for Custom Community Safety and Multicultural Affairs to come on stage. This morning, I got a message from Mr. Wood's office that he's very sick. And now we have Mr. Ranch Pereira, the Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor of Mr. Jason Wood. He will come on the stage and give us the message of Mr. Wood on behalf of him. Thank you. Please welcome Mr. Ranch Pereira. Thank you.
Sat Sri Akal. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Jason Wood conveys his apologies. He really wanted to be here today to take part in this wonderful event, but unfortunately he was not too well this morning, unfortunately, he couldn't make it. So he wanted me to read out. It was such an important event, and he just wanted me to read out this message on his behalf. He acknowledges Jasbir Singh Surupada from Sikh Interfaith Council of Victoria, Tim Costello, the Australian Baptist minister, and of course, Chief Advocate of World Vision Australia, Vivienne Nguyen, Chairperson, Victorian Multicultural Commission, and he also acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on today, and pays my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. It's also great that this event is being held at Bunjil Place. Jason worked hard to get $10 million for the initial construction of this wonderful facility that we are here enjoying this great function. Vaisakhi is one of the most significant and colourful observances in the Sikh and Indian calendars. It marks the beginning of a new year and the harvest season celebrated by many with giving flowers, prayer, music and dancing, processions and feasting. It is a time to reflect on Sikh teachings like courage, equality and compassion. It is fitting that this occasion has been chosen to recognise the efforts of Sikh volunteers who selflessly contribute so much to the Australian community. Sikh Volunteers Australia has a reputation within our local community in Victoria and indeed around Australia for lending a hand to those in need, particularly through the free food vans and free takeaway food kitchens. They certainly do amazing, wonderful work. And when Australians struggled with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and the devastating Black Summer bushfires last year, Sikh Volunteers Australia were there to help. The delivery of food and water to affected communities and frontline workers in those difficult times was invaluable and indeed much appreciated. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Sikh community for your dedication to promoting brotherhood, peace and prosperity. Sikhism, of course, is a wonderful religion started by the great Guru Nanak, who we are all grateful for. Australia is home to more than 125,000 people of this great faith, including more than 52,000 Sikh Australians here in Victoria. Religion can be a powerful unifying force, bringing people together in a spirit of harmony, charity and acceptance. It provides solace, guidance and a sense of community for many Australians. We are a successful multicultural and multi-faith community because we embrace the diversity within our society. Australians are united by shared values like respect, equality and freedom, values that sit comfortably within the Sikh way of life. Our harmony and unity is precious and must always be championed and protected. I commend Sikh Volunteers Australia for your enduring optimism and enthusiasm and your commitment to community service. Through your generosity, you have spread peace, companionship and equality within our community, making us stronger, more prosperous and indeed more resilient. I wish you every success with your Vaisakhi celebrations and the recognition of volunteers that is so well deserved. I congratulate Sikh Volunteers Australia for the fantastic work you do in serving our communities. Australians are very grateful. Thank you, Jason Wood.
Mr. Ranj. I request Mr. Ranj to please be with us for a little while, and you have to do all what this Jason Wood was supposed to. And while we pray for his early well-being, and so he get recover fully very soon. Thank you. Representatives of Sikh Volunteers Australia, please come on stage and provide Mr. Ranj Pereira the memento which was originally meant for Mr. Jason Wood. Thank you. After this, I will also request members of Australian Federal Police from Mr. Bruce Gill's office, members of Victorian Police, Nikki Turner, to please line up on the stage, on the right side of the stage, so a memento can be present to them, please. Brett, Trudy, Mr. Ranch, apologies. We need you for stage for a little while. It's my bad. Thank you. Sorry. Commander Hunter, Brett, Trudy. Thank you. Thank you. Commander Hunter and Brett Trudy, they are representing Bruce Gills and Australian Federal Police Office here. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Members of Victoria Police, please come and join us on the stage. And after this, we will regard the first group of volunteers, which is Group B, for their valuable contribution and service they have provided. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you. Volunteers, Group B, I start with Amandeep Kaur. Amandeep Kaur. Amandeep Singh. Amarpreet Singh. Amarinder Singh. Amarpreet Singh, Amarinder Singh, Ankit Sharma, Anupa Shah, Ahmad Zafri, Avtar Singh Barar, Balkaran Singh, Bhupinder Singh, Bikramjeet Singh, Catherine Thurl Smith, David Rowe, Davinder Singh, Devnoor Kaur. I apologize, the names I'm telling and the person who is on the stage, they are not marrying up. They are a little 2 to 3 stages ahead, means I'm ahead, but I just say that please bear with me and follow the schedule. Donna Murphy. Alvina Das. Gagandeep Singh. Gagandeep Singh, Devnoor Kaur, Donna Murphy, Alvina Das, Gagandeep Singh, Gagandeep Singh, Gagandeep Singh. So we have 5 of Gagandeep Singhs with us. Very common name. Again, Gagandeep Singh. Gavin Pawat. Gina Ramsey. Grace Ho. Gurasi Singh. Gurasi Singh. Gurpinder Singh. Gurbinder Singh. Guriqbal Singh. Gurkirpal Singh. And you will be surprised to know this is the man who was cooking half of the time during the service. Sat Sri Akal. Gurjeet Singh Tami. Gurjeet Singh. Gurmeet Singh. Gurmeet Singh Tillon. Gurpinder Singh. On behalf of Gurpinder Singh ji, his son is accepting the award. And I'm proud to say he is also a volunteer in the youth group as well. Davinder Singh as well. And with this, I state that Group B is complete. Mr. Ranch, we need you a little more on stage. Thank you, Mr. Ranch. Thank you for being with us today. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Mr. Ranch. as I said, with such big events, things happen. We have a few cancellations, we have a few add-ons, which our stage management team is trying to, I will say, cop up on spot. Without any further ado, I will request Mr. Neil Angus, Shadow Minister for Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs, to please come on stage and say a few words. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by acknowledging a number of the distinguished guests that are here this afternoon. Mr. Laquinder Singh, the President of the Sikh Volunteers Australia, the Honourable Anthony Byrne, MP, the Federal Member for Holt, Ms Pauline Richards, MP, State Member for Cranbourne, Ms Jordan Crugnall, MP, State Member for Bass, Ms Viv Nguyen, Chair of the Victorian Multicultural Commission, Reverend Tim Costello, Jasbir Singh Surapoda, Sikh Interfaith Council of Victoria, Mr Chin Tan, the Race Discrimination Commissioner, members of the Victoria Police and the Australian Federal Police, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm absolutely delighted to join you here today as we come together to celebrate the birth of Khalsa and also to celebrate and recognise the extraordinary efforts of many volunteers during COVID. Today we celebrate Vaisakhi, the day that marks the birth of Khalsa. This celebration is an important time for communities to join together, participate in and celebrate important cultural and religious traditions. The Liberal Nationals is proud to support cultural celebrations such as these, which brings communities together, promoting community harmony and understanding. We are very fortunate to live in a multicultural society where we can freely and openly observe and celebrate our religious and cultural heritage. And we encourage all religious and cultural groups to share their traditions with the broader community. Today we come together to acknowledge and thank the many volunteers for their continued service, especially during COVID. Here in Victoria, 2020 proved to be a very challenging and difficult year for us all. It began with devastating bushfires, the loss of many lives, as well as property and livestock destruction. It continued with the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on millions of people worldwide, changing all our lives virtually overnight. The onset of COVID-19 and the resulting restrictions changed our world very rapidly. Lockdowns, social distancing and other restrictive measures were part of our lives over many, many months. Our doctors, nurses and healthcare workers who were and still are at the front line of this healthcare crisis deserve our gratitude and support for putting their lives on the line daily to protect ours, and we thank them for their commitment. We also thank and recognise the many volunteers who continue to provide for the most vulnerable members in our community during the very uncertain times of COVID. Our multicultural community groups provide an essential focus for volunteering, recreation and social activity, as well as preserving cultural traditions and languages. Volunteers have always been an integral part of Victorian society and instrumental in building Victoria. Our many faith communities, service clubs and other organisations perform charitable work and assist those less fortunate in our community. Victoria's multicultural and faith-based organisations are critical in building strong, resilient communities and create opportunities for people to participate in society. They provide vital assistance to those with the highest needs, new arrivals, young and older people, and provide pathways to mainstream services and government links. They play an incredibly vital role in delivering outstanding services, fostering and supporting diversity and promoting community harmony. In turn, they make an enormous contribution to Victoria and help shape our democratic traditions and civic institutions. I particularly take this opportunity to commend and thank the Sikh Volunteers Australia for the work they continue to do, providing free food and other services and help to those most in need in our society, and for the discipline you show and the commitment you have to many, many good causes. Through humanitarian and social work activities, your many members help improve the lives of many people in our state and in our country. Your advocacy work does much to build a stronger and more resilient community here in Victoria. As such, the Sikh Volunteers Australia is indeed a shining example of your community spirit and our prosperous, diverse society. And I can clearly remember seeing the photos of the Sikh volunteers providing food to anyone who needed it at the seat of the fires last year. And that was absolutely an outstanding example to all Victorians, and I was pleased to see that that had been captured in the piece of artwork that was revealed a short time ago. Victoria's Sikh community continues to play a vital role in contributing to the broader Victorian community. Values of compassion, selflessness, harmony, tolerance and respect resonate with us all. You have been great promoters of interfaith and intercultural understanding and harmony. Sikh Victorians are passionate, nurture cultural traditions and have been generous in sharing the rich Sikh heritage and faith with the broader Victorian community. You also practically assist the broader community, as I have witnessed myself during my visits to the Sri Guru Nanak Satin Sabha Blackburn near my office. To visit last year and see the many cheery and selfless volunteers providing meals to anyone who came along was indeed heartwarming and is to be greatly commended. I want to thank you all for your generosity of spirit and vital contribution to this cosmopolitan state. We recognise that Victoria's identity, success and strength is its tapestry of many faiths, cultures and languages, and we encourage all religious and cultural groups to share their traditions with the broader community. To everyone here today, thank you for your enduring friendship, support and the work you do in shaping Victoria's multicultural, harmonious state and for volunteering so diligently as you do here in Victoria. Thank you.
Mr. Neil Engels, may I please request you to be on the stage for a little more while? Thank you. May I request representatives of Sikh Volunteers Australia to please come on stage and present a memento to Mr. Neil Engels. Thank you. After this, may I request Mr. Chen Tan, Australian Human Rights Commissioner, to please come on the stage and receive the memento of the day. Thank you. Volunteers of Group E, please keep an eye on your schedule. After Mr. Chen Tan, I request organization representatives who are in Group C to please come to the stage and receive your memento of the day. Thank you. Yes, you are providing him. Organization representatives. Rotary Club of Glenfrey, Barrack Little Athletes, Lynbrook Resident Association, Community Support Frankston, Victorian Council of Churches and Emergency Ministry, Charm, Neighborhood Watch Casey, Barracks Soup Van, Lions Club of Casey, Frankston Beach Patrol. That's the thing about fishing. I like that name, Frankston. Dove and Cheer, Aslam Seeker Resources Center, SES, Australian South Asian Center, CFA. Please come on the stage. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thanks for being so patient with us. And that's for you.
Thank you very much. It's great.
Thank you. And with this, I confirm that the group C of the local organizations is being regarded. I'm being informed that we have another cancellation. In the main, may I request to volunteers of Group F to please line up on the right side of the soil and give some time to the stage management team to sort out their names and other formalities. With this, I would request our very own, our very special, and the lady who has always supported us, Ms. Pauline Richard, to please come on stage and say a few words to us. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you. There is not even a single time when we have approached Ms. Pauline Richard's office and we will not be answered. That's not even a single time I can remember. She's so supportive, so generous, always to our organization. I can't express that gratitude in my words. Pauline, please come on stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. For thousands of years, this was the land of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that it will always be the land of the Kulin Nation and recognise that our traditional owners were in fact our first volunteers, our first teachers, our first faith leaders, and I'd like to acknowledge any Indigenous elders, past, present, and of course, any emerging elders. I'm not sure what it is about daughters and text messages, Jaswinder, but my daughter has also texted me. She's a teacher, and she said to me, "Mum, I think when you speak today, there's going to be a lot of children there." And as she often does, she reminds me to thank the children for sitting so beautifully, and also to remind the parents that the joy of children being in the audience, I know sometimes you can worry that they're disturbing us, but I'd like to acknowledge that we have a sparkling and bright future here, and that sparkling and bright future is represented by the children that we have with us today. I'd like to acknowledge distinguished guests, representatives of members of Parliament, and my parliamentary colleague Neil Angus. I'd also like to bring the greetings of the Premier Daniel Andrews, and I today am representing Ros Spence, the Minister for Multicultural Affairs. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank Vid Nguyen, Reverend Tim Costello, who a long time ago was my boss, but anyway, that was a long time before politics, and our faith leaders. Before the bushfires, before the global pandemic, before the floods in New South Wales, I'd like to tell you about one of the experiences I had of the Sikh community that I often tell people. And it was listening to Jasbir provide us with some insights into faith and into Sikhism that I recalled this story that I have told often. After the tragedy of the mosque massacre in Christchurch, the next morning, quite a few people went to visit the local mosque in Dandenong. And as I pulled into the car park with my family, I thought we were a bit early. I knew the mosque wasn't opening until about 10 o'clock. But just before 10 o'clock, I saw a group of faith leaders emerge from their cars. And I saw a group of faith leaders emerge and go inside the mosque and pray in solidarity with their brothers and sisters of the Muslim community. And I'd like to reassure the Sikh community that that impression of a community that takes action, I think, instinctively. It was a moment, I think, and perhaps I look to Jasbir to wonder, a moment of instinct, where I saw what happens when faith communities join together and show solidarity to each other. And so when I saw that the Sikh volunteers were travelling to all sorts of parts of Victoria in response to the bushfires, that as people were racing away from the bushfires, as they ought, that it was the Sikh volunteers who raced towards the fires to provide not just benevolence, and benevolence is a very important thing, not just an act of altruism, but what I now think of in listening to Jasbir today and listening to Reverend Costello. I'm conscious that I am surrounded by some terrific theologians, but an act of dignity, of recognising that people have a right, an absolute right to feel safe and also to be free from hunger. So I'd like to acknowledge that today, in a moment of extraordinary parochialism, I am so proud of this community, so proud of this state, so proud of Cranbourne. I wanted to let you know that I was in a meeting last week, and at the end of the meeting, it was like so many of us, I'm experiencing a lot of virtual meetings. Somebody asked me to stay back in the room, in the virtual room, and they were from Tasmania. And this man said, do you represent Cranbourne? And I said, yes, I'm a member of Parliament, I represent Cranbourne. And he said, isn't that the place where the Sikh volunteers come from? And I felt that absolute overwhelming pride that the Sikh volunteers represent the best of all of us. So it's not just about giving, it's not just about solidarity, it's about people acting with instinct. And watching those children perform before, I thought, aha, that's it. This is where we teach our children to have an instinct to care. It's those rituals and words that the children performed for us and the way that the children demonstrated, and we respectfully listened to the children. So I'd like to conclude by thanking the extraordinary volunteers we have with us today, the Sikh volunteers, but also those from our SES, and I love now to think of the Sikh community as representing the SES. Our police force, not many people know perhaps that during the lockdown, there was Operation Ribbon, where the police absolutely had a visual presence, but were going to check on women to make sure they were safe from family violence. That there is a great deal of work that our police undertake that we see, but there's a great deal of work that our police and emergency services undertake that we don't see. So I'd like to acknowledge that as well. I'd like to acknowledge all of the other organisations who are here today. The list was so long, but again, this is what makes us the most successful multicultural state. And this is why, in this act of parochialism, I am so proud of our community, of what we have formed and developed here. And I acknowledge that we have representatives from the City of Casey. I'm very pleased to have the administrators here as well represented. So thank you all for the way that you have comforted and cared for each other during what was and is an extraordinary global pandemic, during bushfires, floods, but also what seems to be an instinct that comes from tragedy to react immediately, to go in solidarity and to stand sometimes shoulder to shoulder with people who are experiencing pain. You are all a credit to us, and I am so incredibly proud of this community. Thank you.
May I request representatives of Sikh Volunteers Australia please come on stage and provide memento to Ms. Paul and Richard. After this, may I request a respected group of mayors and administrators to please come on stage and receive the memento of the day. Group D, mayors and administrators. Councillor Antonella Saleh from Mornington, Peninsula Shire. Mayor and Councillor Brett On from Gardenia Shire. Megal Balmer from Casey, please come. I request if Councillor Hadi Saab from Deputy Mayor Kingston Council, if he is here, then please come on stage. After this, I would request volunteers of Group F to please come on stage and receive the memento of the day from Ms. Pauline Richards. Thank you. नहीं है जी गुरसहज सिंह गुरसेवक सिंह ठीक है यही गलती ठीक गुरसेवक सिंह Gursev Singh Lockham, Gursharan Singh, Hardev Singh, Harpal Singh, and may I say, this gentleman, Harpal Singh, doesn't matter where Sikh volunteers go, he accompanied. New South Wales, East Gippsland, wherever he, and we are solely dedicated on our volunteers like this. Harvinder Singh, we have two Harvinder Singhs today. I will say Harvinder Singh second. Inderbeat Singh. Jaskaran Singh Brag. Jagpal Singh. Jaswant Singh. Sat Sri Akal. For the 289 days, whatever the veggies are being cut and peeled, this is the gentleman you are seeing on the stage, was behind all that. Jagpreet Singh. Jatinder Singh. Jaswinder Singh. Kamaldeep Singh. He is accepting the reward on behalf of his father, who is actually working behind the stage screen to accommodate everything. Please give a big hand of applause to the gentleman. Catherine Wins. Kuldeep Singh. Kulwant Singh. Lakhvinder Singh. Leon Kyok. And he is the same gentleman who used to come every day from 70 kilometers just to do the survey. Major Singh. Mandeep Singh. Manjinder Singh. Marcus Paul Restiner. Gurmukh Singh.
लखवीर सिंह के परिवार आ गया है
Harsimran Singh. Inderjeet Kaur, Kuldeep Singh second, and on behalf of Kuldeep Singh, we have his family here. And Lakhbir Singh. On behalf of Lakhbir Singh, his family, his two sons are receiving the memento. You will be surprised to know that the gentleman is serving today for the food service as well. So he's serving today as well. And with this, I declare that Group F volunteers are all being regarded. Thank you. Thank you, Paul and Richard. Thanks for being on the stage. Thank you. As I was mentioning that we have a few last minute cancellations and additions as well. And the team who's actually managing the whole event tried their best to accommodate each and everything. Maybe by now you have realized that facilitating almost 300 volunteers and such a big group is a massive task. Doesn't matter how much rehearsal, how much practice we have done in the past, but things happen and we have to be flexible, remain flexible to accommodate the changes. While we are celebrating Vaisakhi here in the form of Volunteer Appreciation Day, while we are talking about our donors, while we are talking about our contribution of our volunteers, I must have to acknowledge a very big factor, which is working
even though majority of our volunteers came from the region Punjab. The whole region is at the moment is occupied in a very big protest, I will say, which in last few decades human beings have seen. This is some kind of a protest against laws which are being passed. So why I am telling this? Because majority of our volunteers came from Punjab. Their families are there who are actually indulged in agriculture sector. Their families are sitting in the protest, and the volunteers over here in Australia, they are worried about the well-being of their families back in home country. You might have seen news, you might have seen social media articles and all those things, that what's going on. But even despite of that stress, these volunteers didn't make any excuse of not being shown up on the day of service. I personally know some of the volunteers whose families are in the protest.
They were talking to them, they were asking their well-being, but they are still doing the service, and that is just for the cause of humanity. I personally believe these volunteers actually deserve a big round of applause for being such a personality. Going forward, I request representatives of Sikh Volunteers Australia to please come and join us on stage in order to regard Sikh institutions and gurdwaras and present them a memento. May I request respected representatives of all Sikh institutions and organizations in Group E to please come and join us on the stage. Thank you. Representatives of Gurdwara Shri Kees Goro Sahab. Gurdwara Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Kees Goro. Representatives of Gurdwara Baba Buddha Ji Pakana. And while these institutions are receiving their memento, I would like to tell that Sikh Volunteers, along with the Sikh Volunteers Australia, all of these religious institutions have kept open themselves during the period of COVID, and they were serving food to the humanity and to the people who are in need as well. Thank you. May I request other representatives of organizations and Gurdwara institutions who are present here. Sikh Interfaith Council of Victoria, they are here. Please come and join us on stage. Thank you. Sikh Australian Support for Family Violence. Gurdwara Shri Guru Nanak Darbar Sahib officer. And I'm just being confirmed that with this, all the representatives who are present here from Group E are being regarded. Thank you. Apologies, we have just a new entry from United States. Thank you. United States is an international organization who's working for the well-being of humanity. And Paisabji is actually the representative of the Australian chapter of United States. Thank you. And with this, I announce that all the representatives in the Group E are covered now. Thank you, Paisabji. Thanks a lot. without taking any further moment, I will request Ms. Jordan Cribnell, MP Bass, to please come on stage. I'm again being just informed that there is another cancellation of the last moment. And in that case, may I request volunteers of the group G to please come to the aisle in the right, and we will regard them very quickly. Also, since there is a big change in the schedule, so I am pulling up a few things earlier. While volunteers of the last group are setting up in the backstage, may I request Dr. Moya McFadden, Senior Curator, Migrant and Cultural Diversity Museum, Victoria, to please come on stage and inaugurate a very important and very colorful project of Victoria Museum with us. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Please join your hand and welcome Moya.
Okay, so we'll just give you a note and just distinguished guests and friends all, and I assure you I'll be very quick. I can hear tummies grumbling from here, so I'll move right along. And I would just also like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I am speaking today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and recognise that sovereignty has never been ceded. And I'm so delighted to be here today to represent this special cultural event and to be able to recognise the extraordinary contributions of the Sikh volunteer community. And I thank the organisers for inviting me to say just a few words about a very special project that the museum is collaborating on with representatives from 7 Sikh community organisations. Okay, next slide. Great. In 2020, Museums Victoria launched Collecting the Curve, a rapid response contemporary collecting project documenting Victorian experiences of the COVID-19 pandemic as they happen. We have taken a targeted approach to collecting rather than a large-scale public call-out, enabling us to ensure that the stories we collect are diverse and nuanced. As you can see here, the collecting and documentation activities have been organised into a series of themes relating to medical research, isolation, cancelled events, industry closures and adaptation, and the theme under which our collaboration with the Sikh community falls, called Living the Curve, exploring personal and community stories of survival, creativity, support and resilience. Next slide. Myself and fellow curator Catherine Forge met with representatives from all the organisations listed here. Excellent. As you are well aware, all these agencies are active in providing a wide range of community services, including food relief to vulnerable people, but also domestic violence support, counselling and training, and health services support. Next slide. Our aim has been to develop together a project to document and preserve stories associated with and collective responses to Sikh volunteerism during the COVID-19 pandemic in Victoria. The emphasis of this collecting project is on gathering many perspectives and experiences, and one approach has been a call out through the Sikh community networks for volunteers to submit their reflections and their photographs. We want to capture the voices, images and objects of the people working on the ground. And we also aim to acquire stories of the number of representative agencies selected by the Sikh project team with which the Sikh organisations have worked to deliver support, such as hospitals, aged care facilities, food banks and the police. This incredible effort of volunteer mobilisation through Sikh philosophies of selfless service and inclusivity is an ideal case study for the museum to capture for posterity as part of the Collecting the Curve project. To achieve this, the museum is dependent on our Sikh partners to gather the stories and images for acquisition into the State Heritage Collection through their wide-reaching networks and range of activities across Greater Melbourne and regional Victoria. The project was initiated by and is being driven and guided by the Sikh volunteer community. Our meetings have all been conducted so far on Zoom, as you see. The Sikh representatives expressed their desired outcomes for the project as to show that Sikh communities are cross-faith and cross-community in terms of their impact, reveal the diversity of volunteers involved and people served, which go well beyond the Sikh community, develop a lasting and tangible legacy for future Sikh generations, to document displays of selflessness in the Sikh community, and to provide public education on Sikhs for the general public. Of particular importance for everyone is that this is a democratic community, and while many Sikh organisations are involved and the stories will emanate from their individual networks, the project is not about promoting these individual organisations or highlighting the work of a few individuals as representative. The museum is anticipating receiving, through our Sikh project team, written reflections in English and or Punjabi on volunteer experiences during the pandemic, and also photographs documenting volunteer and collaborating industry activities, and objects which symbolise these activities, such as food distribution containers, signs and banners, cooking utensils, recipes and food packaging. The end result of this project will be an evolving collection of material which will provide a permanent and public legacy for the Sikh community and the people of Victoria. Stories, images and objects which are acquired and documented will be presented on the museum's Victoria Collecting the Curve website and on the museum's broader collections website. And stories and collections may also appear in future displays and in education programs. So I look forward to continuing to work with the Sikh communities in developing this collection so that future generations can recognise the enormous contribution of Sikh volunteers to the broader Victorian community during the COVID-19 pandemic, all through the voices, memories and images of the volunteers and their collaborators. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Moya. And with this, I request representatives of Sikh Volunteers Australia to please come on stage and present the letter of appreciation from Premier Victoria and Prime Minister Australia to officially to Museum Victoria. Thank you. Both letters are being issued by respective offices of Premier Victoria and Prime Minister Australia in appreciation of the service done by whole Victorian Sikh community during the COVID-19 lockdowns and crisis. Thank you. I will also say please stay tuned on the social media pages to keep an update of actual launch of this project on Victoria Museum website. Thank you. And with this, may I request Faiz Singh of Sikh Interfaith Council to please come on stage and provide regards to the volunteers of Group G. Faiz Singh. Please welcome him with me. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Management team, I request that please line up volunteers from the group G so that we can present the memento of the day. Thank you. May I start with Narinder Singh ji. Narinder Singh ji.
Navinder Singh.
The son of Narinder Singh, receiving the memento on behalf of his father. Pushpinder Kaur. Paramjit Singh Rajput. And may I also inform everyone that Paramjit Singh is actually the donor who have donated Sikh Volunteers Australia, the second food van. The whole van is donated by Paramjit Singh. Rajkumar Pathak. Randeep Singh. Ravinderjeet Singh. Ravinderjeet Singh is popularly known with the name Ravi among us. So most of you may maybe with the name of Ravi Singh. Renuka Kolagni. Ritesh Shah. Sakata Singh. Sandeep Singh. We have two Sandeep Singh, so now I call Sandeep Singh second. Saninder Singh. Sarabjit Singh. Satveer Singh. Shane Anderson. Siyuan Hong. Stuart Clark. Sukhbir Singh. He is the second man who was in the team of cutting and chopping the vegetables for whole 289 days. Sukhchand Singh, the very beautiful performance which earlier you all have witnessed by the Youth Volunteer Club, he is the man who actually had prepared those kids. He is also called Master or Ustad in our language. Sukhdeep Singh, Sukhdeep Singh second. Actually, I didn't realize that he is Sukhdeep Singh. He is popularly known with us with the name of Sukha Singh. Sukhjinder Singh. Sukhvinder Singh. Sukhvinder Singh Ullar. Actually, his family is receiving the award on behalf of him. The gentleman is at the moment in India. Tanvinder Singh. Taranjot Singh. Tejinder Singh. His daughter is actually accepting the award on behalf of him. Kuldeep Singh. Pawandeep Kaur. Sandeep Singh. Rajvinder Kaushal. Gurjeet Singh. Satwant Singh. And with all these regards, I finally conclude that the regards all in the group G are being awarded. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thanks a lot for your presence. I would like to call John Blow now on the stage to perform the closing ceremony. After that, we will all head towards the function center, which is towards the other side of the building, to have the meals. Thank you.
this, apologies. And with this, with very much honor and respect, I announce that the day is concluded. From here, we will all head towards the function center, which is other side of the building, and we will have food together. Thank you. And anyone who wants to take photograph with this big donor's regard, it will be available there, and you can have it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
हाँ जी बाबा जी आ गई बस आगे आगे ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਆ ਬਾਬਾ ਮੈਂ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮਿੰਟ ਤੇ ਮੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਲੈ ਇੱਧਰ ਕਰਦਾ
ਇੱਕ ਮਿੰਟ ਦਾ ਬਾਕਸ ਲੈ ਆਵਾਂ ਯਾਰ ਉਹ ਬੀਬੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਖੜੇ ਸੀ ਇੱਕ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਮਾਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਟੁੱਟੇ ਨਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਸਭ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਭਾਈ ਕੋਲ
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਆ ਗਏ आ गई ਆ ਗਏ ਵਧੀਆ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ। ਉਹ ਠੀਕ ਹੋ ਜੀ?